Going live. All right, Facebook family. We started at a new time tonight. This is Memorial Day, and I know that most people around the country are remembering veterans. But on Pajama Praise, we remember those who served in the army of the Lord on the battlefield each Sunday morning, serving God at some church by way of musician, choir director, or singer. And so tonight, our special guest is Dallas chapter representative, Mr. Sam Britt, all the way from Dallas, Texas. And then recording artist, composer, musician, choir director, Mr. Michael Burns, all the way from Houston, Texas. I'm excited about having them on because these guys have been around a long time, and we're going to remember those trailblazers, those who served in the capacity of church musician or director or singer. And so we're going to remember those. We're waiting on Sister Terri Swift-Gadsden to get on. She's having a little some technical problems, but she will be on. We may have to bring her on via phone, but we're going to get her in. And so we're happy to be here tonight on Memorial Day. We want to remember Catrice Reed's father, Mr. Harry Webb. They had to rush him to the hospital today. And she is a great supporter of the Pajama Praise Show. And so y'all remember, call on the name of the Lord and remember Mr. Harry Webb in your prayers. We want to ask God to touch his body and heal him. I know him to be a healer. And so we want to remember Mr. Harry Webb tonight. Also, you guys, all roads, as Brother Joe Bagsby would say, all roads will lead to the Cornerstone Baptist Church, 5415 Matlock Road, this Sunday at 4 o'clock for the Metroplex Hymn Fest. Listen, guys, we are excited. We are excited about this Hymn Fest. We are trying to keep the hymns alive. Many churches don't sing hymns. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone yesterday, Sam and Michael, and they told me that when their pastor came to the church, he got rid of the hymnals. He gave the hymnals away, because evidently he didn't see a need for hymnals in the church.
Wow.
But we're going to keep the hymns alive. We're going to start at 4 o'clock. Dr. McKinley Jackson, pastor of the Samaria Baptist Church, is going to moderate a panel pastors that were former ministers of music. The legendary pastor Milton Pace from Saintsville Cathedral will be on the panel. Pastor Alvin Pope will be on the panel. Pastor Willie Stewart will be on the panel. Dr. Darrell Blair. These guys once served over their music ministries, and now they're pastoring, and they're going to talk about the necessity of keeping the hymns alive even in the contemporary age. I love contemporary music. I do love it to death, but man, I pull those hymns out. We do a hymn of the month, and we keep adding to our repertoire. So that's what we want to do. Our presenters for the Hymn Fest will be Dr. Patrick Bradley, our own Sister Cornice Wells, Brother Keith Walker is going to be on the organ, Brother DeMarcus Williams, worship leader at Cornerstone, will be with us. Brother Lee Jackson, minister of music at Grace Temple Seventh-day Adventist Church in Macmillan, is going to be with us. Brother Thomas McPhee, the minister of music at Elijah Fellowship, where Pastor Abe Cooper serves. One of my favorite pianists, Sister Carlos Brown, is going to be with us. My favorite concert pianist, Miss Gladys Faison, who can play anything. And then the gifted musician, choir director, and psalmist, Minister Elizabeth Davis, is going to be with us. And then our youth choir director at Bethany, Miss Crystal Jordan, is going to be with us. Then Brother Larry Bradford, all the way from the Ben Washington Church in Irving, is going to be with us. Dr. Demetria Campbell from the West Mount Moriah Baptist Church in Fort Worth is going to be with us. And then our songbirds, Bessie, Toy, and Debbie, man, y'all need to come, if nothing else, to come and hear them sing Savior More Than Life to Me. And then our own sister Terri Swift-Gadsden, very gifted musician, singer, and choir director, will be with us. Listen, I want to thank Pastor Dwight McKissick for allowing us to come again. This is the only time we've ever gone to a church twice, but we're going to go back to Cornerstone, and I promise you, you will be blessed on this coming Sunday. And so, listen, guys, we're going to get into our show tonight. Brother Micheal, will you offer us a quick word of prayer?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Father, we come thank you for all you've done for us, for keeping us safe during this holiday season. And God, we pray that something that will be said or shared on this show tonight will bless or even bring someone closer to you. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And so listen, before we actually start talking about the names, Brother Sam, I want you to talk, just do a quick snippet of what the Dallas chapter is doing, where we're going this year for the convention, and everything. And then talk about the musical, the Bon Voyage musical. Quickly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Glenn. And again, thank you for having me this evening. The Dallas chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America, we meet the first Saturday of every month at Golden Gate Baptist Church down in the bottom off of Colorado and 8th Street in Oak Cliff. And the first Sunday, I think it's July the 6th, we will be having our Bon Voyage musical, where we will showcase some of the music that we will do at the National. And our two of our guest choirs that I know that are confirmed is Concord Baptist Church Choir and KGGR Community Choir. Those are our guests, Dr. Patrick Bradley, Dr. Clark Joseph, Lady Regina Williams, and Minister Brent Polk are our ministers of music. Mm-hmm. And if anybody is available on that's the holiday. It's the 4th of July weekend, but by Sunday, we ought to be tired of barbecue and everything else that goes along with it. So we ought to be ready for some church. So we would encourage you to come. It's always an upbeat, a very good a musical celebration.
Mm-hmm. And so where's the workshop going to be this year?
Okay. I'm sorry. The workshop is going to be in Montgomery, Alabama. This year. I think this is our first time going to Montgomery. And Monday night at the convention, we are celebrating Bishop Jameson, his 30 years being chairman of the board of GMWA, and his 70th birthday will be that week. So it's a 70-30 celebration on that Monday night. So if you're planning on going to the convention, I would encourage you to get your ticket for that banquet celebration on Monday night.
Sam, you know what? I sure wish Matt Rose could be at the Bon Voyage musical, because I want to hear y'all sing "Baptized in the Holy Ghost." Man,
we were at the Bon Voyage last year. We got to give somebody else a chance.
Listen, man, y'all messed me up with that song. You hear me?
Well, praise the Lord.
My God.
Praise the Lord.
Look, I sent Regina a message. I said, "Who sings that song?"
Yeah, she can come up with. She can pick some good church music.
Yeah. Brother Michael Burns, man, what are y'all doing down in Houston?
Preparing for the heat. Really? Yeah, everything's going well. You know, there's not a whole lot going on right now, but I know we are preparing for the upcoming convention.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All is well.
All right. So you're still writing music?
I still write, not as much as I used to. I'm kind of took a step back a little bit to let everybody else write for a change.
Oh man, come on now. You one of God's best writers, man. We want some material from you.
Well, actually, I've been writing, not necessarily music. I actually wrote a couple of books. So I've kind of just shifted a little bit from the
Okay.
sheet music to actually reading material.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, man, before we leave, if you can, type in the comments section how we can get your books. How about that?
I'll do that. We'll do.
All right. So, listen, y'all. On tonight, we're remembering again those church musicians, choir directors, and singers. And I know that each of these brothers that's on with me tonight have been in music a long time. Sam, you started. Were you at Griggs or St. John?
I was between the two. My parents went to different churches. My mom was a lifelong member of St. John, and my dad was a member of Griggs Chapel. So I would start off with one Sunday, and the next Sunday I go to the other one. We'd go to Sunday school at one and go to church at the other one. I got baptized at St. John when my brother preached his first sermon, and then I joined Griggs Chapel when I was in college.
Okay. And so who were your musicians back then?
The musicians at St. John, Lena Lou Estelle, Mrs. Lena Lou Estelle was the minister of music. Valley Joe Estelle was the pianist, and C. Felice Collins was the organist. St. John had a pipe organ at that time. So she was the organist, and we dare not have drums or anything of that nature back then at St. John's. So that was it. That was the staff. And at Griggs Chapel, it was Olivia Skinner and Jimmy Wyatt, Paul Jackson, Don Ollie.
Okay.
They were all there. They were all there at one time or another.
Okay.
And Roy Cotton Sr. I don't know how I could forget him.
Okay.
Yeah, he was at Griggs too.
And so, man, Brother Jimmy Wyatt, man, I worked hard to try to get him on Pajama Praise because I knew he had a lot of the history. And then he was a historical figure himself with all of the work he had done in gospel music. And he got out of here before I could interview him. And so that's one of the names we're going to call tonight, Brother Jimmy Wyatt.
Yeah, he's on my list. Yeah.
Brother Jimmy served a long time, and one of his classmates who's in my choir didn't realize that Jimmy was a national figure. She grew up with him in West Dallas, and often in our communities, they don't really know what we do. They just know us from the community.
Right.
But another legendary musician, Brother Jimmy Wyatt, served. And then you mentioned Miss Skinner. Miss Skinner, her name was she a musician for one of the conventions?
Yeah, she was over the men for the National Baptist. She was over, the men's choir for the National Baptist Convention of America for years and years until she actually, just a little bit before she passed, she retired from being over that.
Yeah, she was a well-known musician. Brother Michael, what church did you grow up in?
I grew up in a church called Greater Community Baptist Church. And from there, most recently, I'm at Fifth Ward Missionary Baptist Church. And, I just have to circle back to Jimmy Wyatt, because not only was he in Dallas, but he helped me out for years with my singers. Traveled, wrote music, studio work, and he was definitely a blessing.
He was a gifted musician. I knew he resided in Houston for a while, but he traveled with so many artists.
He did.
And he laid that foundation up under him. And so who were your musicians growing up, Brother Michael?
Wow, I worked with so many. For years, I worked with Ernest Lofton at the Bella Vista Baptist Church, and also Charles Tyrone. That's another one. He's on my list. I know he's on your list too. But me and Charles worked together for years. Actually, I was one of the founding members with Charles Tyrone and the Faith Community Singers.
And so that was actually one of the first gospel groups, wasn't it?
You mean first gospel groups in terms of?
In Houston. I know Brother Willie Thornton had the group Sanctuary.
Yeah, I think they were like in different eras. So, they had the era with the community choirs. We had like a number of community choirs here. And then later on that Charles Tyrone and Faith Community Singers came on the scene. And that was kind of like around the time of Milton Brunson, whatever that timeline is.
And so, yeah, that would have been in the mid 80s, right?
Yeah, close to the 90s. I think close to the 90s.
Okay.
Around there, yeah.
And so I grew up at Worth Hill Baptist Church. That's where I started playing. And Miss Annie Margaret Young Sumlin, who passed last year, she was at our last Hymn Fest. She came and sung at the last Hymn Fest. And man, a couple of months later, the Lord decided it was time for her to come home. And so I can't forget her. Sister Annie Margaret Young Sumlin. And Sam, you probably didn't know this, but Reverend K.K. Wells, Sister Corney's father and Kermit's grandfather, he gave me my first church job.
Really? Wow. No, I didn't. Wow.
And so that's my deep connection to them, Reverend K.K. Wells. And I could only play in the key of G, and he let me play it. and we had a big youth choir, and I was playing in G, and they were singing, and he was in revival everywhere.
Wow.
And he would take us. And back then, Kermit wasn't even playing; he was in the youth choir,
Wow.
But and so we remember our own church musicians. And so, Sam, who else do you remember from Dallas that impacted you and impacted
my list, I just started with the most recent deaths that I could remember as musicians, and that was Sean Martin and Jimmy Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jerry Wayne Mitchell. Of course, Pastor Lott. He was assistant chapter rep for Dallas, but when he came to Dallas, he was the minister of music at Faithful Baptist Church while he was attending bishop.
I didn't know that.
And then Olivia Skinner, of course, that we've talked about from Griggs Chapel. Michael Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew Michael Ford from Dallas. Doris Sanders Jackson.
Right.
Doris Helen. She was Doris Sanders forever, and then she was Doris Jackson. And as I mentioned, Lena Lou Estelle, Valley Joe Estelle, Mr. Otis Lloyd.
Mr. Lloyd, yeah, workshop.
Yeah. Mr. Otis.
He taught the organ class or something at the workshop.
Yes, he was a great organist. And I don't remember what church. I think he was at a Methodist church, but I don't remember.
I think he was at Charles's church.
Cedar Crest.
I think he was at Cedar Crest.
Okay, it could be because he lived over in that area. He lived right behind Cedar Crest, so that's probably right. I thought it was a Methodist church.
Okay.
And then after Lena Lou Estelle died at St. John, Sarita Lattimore took her place as minister of music. And of course, Michael Terrell. How can we mention Dallas without mentioning Michael Terrell? And then Odessa Jackson. Everybody thought Michael Terrell was the minister of music at Golden Gate, but really Mrs. Odessa Jackson was the minister of music. And Leo Bubba Taylor and Tamara Taylor. You can't say one without the other one.
Right.
And then when you said Crystal Jordan, that made me think of her mom.
Miss Jawanda.
Yeah, Jawanda Jordan. So that's the beginning of my list as far as my mind could go right now. But I know as we talk, some more will surface.
All right. And so we got Sister Terri via telephone. Terri, tell everybody hello. Let's see. Well, I thought I had her via telephone. Okay. Okay, we can hear you now. Terry, tell the Facebook family hello.
Hello, Facebook family. I'm so sorry y'all can see me, but I'm not figuring this out.
Well, that's okay. Just make sure you talk loud. We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay.
And so we were doing introductions, and we were talking about the churches we grew up in and who our musicians were. What church did you grow up in, and who were your musicians?
I grew up in New Bethel. At that time, it was New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. Our pastor was Reverend C.A. Wilson.
Okay.
And I come up under our F.
Okay.
Helen Mundy.
Helen Mundy.
Jesse James.
Jesse James.
And then later in my years, we had Andre Washington.
Okay, Andre.
We had Reginald Wright.
Okay.
And then I was the musician for a while.
Right. Now you were the musician there for a long time, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there. I went off to school. I came back and played a little bit, and then there was a disagreement, and I was just Hank Cornish used to say a prophet without honor. So that's what happened.
Terry said there was a disagreement and she wasn't there no more.
I stayed gone about 10, 15 years, but then when I got married, my husband decided he wanted to worship with my brother and sister, and that's when I went back to Michael Moore with our pastor.
Okay.
And right now, Billy Cross is still. But I come up under so many of them, and then the different groups that I was with, Minus Smith and
Finest.
Bobby Baylor.
Bobby Baylor. Finest and Bobby Baylor.
And I don't know, you might be too young. There was a young lady named Blondine Smith.
Yeah, Miss Blondine. Yeah, that's Darlene Smith's daughter. She's in Atlanta now.
Right. We had her and her mother.
Okay.
Nadine McIntyre.
Okay.
They were secretary.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, and I just thought of so many of Carol G. Brown.
Right.
I was up under her for a while. She was at Mount Olive. Yeah.
And so, Michael, who are some of the names you came up with from the Houston area?
I have a short list of people that I actually interacted with: Bruce Linscomb, Charles Tyrone, Rona Mater, and you can stop at any point if you want to expand it. Carl Preacher, Shirley Joyner, Dr. Jesse Mayberry, Adrian Medeiros, which we shared.
Adrian was in Houston, but he's from Fort Worth.
Yeah, but we had him longer.
Right.
Theola Booker. Willie Thornton, Jesse Williams, Leata Campbell, Deborah Daniels, and we just lost a musician this past week, Mary Butler, long-time minister. Yeah, Mary Butler.
At what church? What church is she at?
Jerusalem Baptist Church. Yeah.
But is that the old Jerusalem where Dr. Daniel Lee?
No, that's a different church.
Okay.
Yes, a different church. And that was also Hank Neal, Carol Allen Simmons.
Yeah.
Royce Johnson, Eugene Williams. I mean, the list goes on, but we have so many that actually contribute to gospel music scene here who have gone on.
Yeah, I think with Bruce, man, just as I shared with you last week, man, I was shocked to hear that Bruce had passed. We had just talked like a week or two before, and then I get a call from Dr. Patrick Bradley, asked me had I heard that Bruce had passed, and man, I had not heard that and was shocked.
Yeah,
but
it was sudden. And you know, Bruce was actually inspirational in getting the word out that I could score music.
okay.
That was my big secret for years until Bruce found out. So he was, he brought a lot of business my way.
Well, you know, at the workshop, when you know, for a long time they didn't require you to have your music scored,
Right.
and then when they started having Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reese,
right,
when they started demanding that you have your music scored and scored properly, then everybody was looking for you.
Exactly.
And what's his name in Wendell Woods? You know, they were looking for you and Wendell, and I think Keith Hampton, and who else was scoring back then?
That was another guy. Was it Kaysen, Daniel? Oh, I forgot the name.
Oh yeah, Danny Kaysen.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah. And so everybody was looking for you guys. You're right. Those guys, man, were just so impactful. Then you, Paul Bigham, Terri mentioned Paul Bigham. Paul Bigham mentored me as a young musician. I met him at O.D. White High School.
Oh, wow.
And had the opportunity to work with Paul for several years. And then he eventually moved back to Houston. As a matter of fact, Sam, so Paul introduced me to Willie Thornton. Willie Thornton came to Pilgrim Rest in the 80s and did a workshop.
Yeah, he came before I joined, but I remember Charles and Linda talking about him a
lot. As a matter of fact, his accompanist was Bubba, Leo Taylor. And so that's when I met Bubba, but and that's when they were in the old church, Sam.
Okay.
When they had the organ in the center and the two pianos on the sides. But I mean, just that's gospel music history right there. Yes. And then, as a matter of fact, that's when Tamra and Bubba met.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, at that workshop. And then years later, I had the opportunity to accompany Miss Kelly's high school choir. They sang at Bubba and Tamara's wedding. So,
wow,
man, just so much history there.
Wow.
You know, one of the, a couple of musicians in Fort Worth that we have to mention. Miss Linda asked me about a month ago about Peter Baker, Charles Peter Baker. I don't know if you guys ever knew him, but Charles Peter Baker wore a wig.
No, I didn't know him.
He if you had met him, you wouldn't have ever forgotten him. He wore a wig, and his musicals were productions.
Wow.
And he would normally have 4 parts to his musical. And so I went to one of his musicals at Sweet Home. And so he started the musical directing in a choir role. And then after part 1, he went and put on a tuxedo. And then after part 2, he went and put on a cape. And he came flying through there in the cape, with the cape flying in the wind. And then he closed out the musical. He went and put on another tuxedo, you know.
Wow.
And so those people like that, you cannot forget, you know. Wow. And then at Rising Star Baptist Church, Brother Travis Williams, and that's who I learned most of my hymns from, because Travis was a lover of hymns, and so he grew up in the Methodist Church. And of course, if you've ever been affiliated with the Methodist Church, then you know they sing hymns, you know. But Travis would do those hymns, and I'll tell you when we really learned the hymns. When I was at Rising Star, we had Sunday night service, And that's when we would sing the hymns. Terry, Lead Me to Calvary, the song you're doing for the Hymn Fest.
Right.
I got that from Travis. Travis would do that at Sunday night service for communion.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got mine. Donna Bell's old album.
Okay.
And they sung that, and I have been in love with it ever since. And I would do it for my community when I had a choir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, Michael, you said that you worked with Charles Tyrone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And what were the roles back then? Were you playing or were you singing or what?
Well, originally we were at the same church, for a while. So I was actually the organist, and from there I remember we were traveling. I think he took a group of singers. We were on the road to Atlanta, Birmingham on tour, and that's when the concept came up. Let's start a choir, and he asked us, "Oh, what should we name this choir?" So we ended up turning into Charles Tyrone and the Faith Community Singers. That's what came up.
Yeah.
That gave birth to Charles Tyrone and the Faith Community Singers. That's why I started.
Okay.
With him.
And Sam, before we start the show, we were talking about William Bryant. Tell us about William Bryant.
William Bryant and Christ Company. William Bryant, that I can remember, he was the minister of music at Greater El Bethel Baptist Church, where Dr. C.C. McNeely was the pastor, and Ricky McNeil was his lead singer back then. And it's from my understanding from Ricky, I think, that when the convention came to Dallas in the 70s,
right.
He was the host, and he used his group, Christ Company, as part of the hosting choir to make up the Dallas chapter. And it was, I don't know if you remember Maurice Lindsay. He was a musician in Dallas, and he was one of the musicians for William Bryant and Christ Company. And he was at Greater Bethel for years, and then he ended up going to Church of the Living God, and that's where he was when he passed, at Church of the Living God.
Okay. And Sam, and so when you mentioned Maurice Lindsay, and we cannot not mention the former minister of music of the Dallas chapter, played piano like nobody ever.
Albert Hensley.
Albert Hensley. Oh my God.
Yes, Albert Hensley. Yes. Yeah. And he had a group as well at the Albert Hensley Ensemble. And, their harmony was second to none. Right.
Yeah, Albert was a phenomenal musician. And you know what? And Terry, when I talk about we're talking about groups. We can't talk about groups and not mention Tyrone Clemens and Greg Taylor. And these are they.
And I was in these events.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I was in these events. I do what? Along with Marion Douglas, Kay Jones, Tyrone's two sisters, and for a little while, Greg Taylor played for her.
Right.
Yeah, I was in these events.
And then, we're talking about groups, and so Sam, Cornell Morrell, we go back to the original Dallas DFW Mass Choir.
Right.
Cornell Morrell, of course, Bubba. We already mentioned Bubba. Was with that choir. Roosevelt Thompson from Fort Worth. Wendell Loving. What was the guy at Trinity Temple? Philip Stewart. Do you remember Philip Stewart?
Yes. I'm trying to think who else. Paul Jackson was part of that original DFW mass choir.
Right. He's still with us though.
Yeah, he's still with them. Yes. And another thing I just thought of with William Bryan, he had another group before Christ Company. It was the Dallas Academy Choir. Now I don't remember much about them, but I know that he was over them as well. And I think that could have been the group that hosted the GMWA versus the Christ Company. I think it was the Dallas Academy Choir.
And William Bryan was the first chapter rep?
No, I don't know. I don't think he was the first chapter. Now, I don't know. I'll have to ask Ricky. I don't know if he was the first chapter rep. I think because he was so well versed and well known in Dallas when the convention came, and he knew Reverend Cleveland just depended on him to assist in the hosting. But I'm not sure if he was chapter rep. I'm gonna ask Ricky tomorrow and find out.
Michael, Miss Leada Campbell from Houston.
Yes.
Was she the first chapter rep for the Houston chapter?
Yes, she was. Yeah, she served for a number of years as the chapter rep. First.
Okay. So now, Terri, were you one of the original people that helped found the Texas Mass Choir?
Yes, I was there with at that time my chapter rep was Charles Randall and Charles Williams. They told me come go with him and we left.
Right.
And yes, I was there, but like I tell them all the time, I was there. I was just, I guess I was young and didn't know, see, I wanted to go. But they did form, and then we did that one in Long Beach picture you used to put on.
Right. That was Michael Burns says he didn't remember being on that first album, but I'm almost sure he recorded on that first album.
I think he did.
Because his picture is on there.
You're right.
You know, I'm starting to lose it. I don't remember. I cannot remember. But that's good to know.
So while we're talking about that, then we have to talk about UL Rivers, Eddie Templeton.
Yeah.
You know,
one of my college mates from Fort Worth, Lena. What was Lena's name when we were in college?
Campbell.
Who? Say it again.
Lena Calvin.
Yeah, Lena Calvin. She when we were at UNT, she used to talk about Mr. Rivers. So I thought I knew him. When I finally met him, I felt like I knew him because she talked about him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lena was in Citywide.
Yeah, Citywide.
Right. Yeah, she sure was. She grew up at Zion in Como. Yeah.
Now, Michael, y'all had Citywide there because I think that's how Paul knew a lot of the people here.
Yeah, we did. Citywide was active during that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's one name I want to bring up. You may remember as BJ Fears.
Yes.
I remember.
He was a part of James Cleveland and the Gospel Messengers. And so he ended up moving to Houston, and I played for him for a while. He had a group called BJ Fears and the BJ Fears Singers.
Right. So here's my story with BJ Fears. One year, Texas Mass was in Houston at Greater Jerusalem, and I presented a song, Because He Lives in Me. And BJ Fears did the lead on it. Bubba played the organ, and Mackie Spratley was on piano. Back then, they would make a song go.
Yeah.
They would make it go. And so, and BJ Fears was in Lufkin for a while, right?
Right. Exactly.
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Well, man, you know what? I'm telling you, these dots are being connected. That's why I love Pajama Praise, because again, people, they don't know. I mean, You know, they don't know how we got here. They don't know the people that paved the way for them. You know, when you talk about Dr. Michael Ford, you know, Michael Ford. So for years, Sam, Michael Ford came to our Hymn Fest, you know.
Really? Yeah.
He came and presented, you know, presented hymns. And you know what? He would bring, like he did this song, There's a Bright Crown Waiting for Me. I mean, just came to the Hymn Fest. He said they used to do it in Louisiana. And I think it's in one of the hymnals. But stuff like that, and that's music you can do on Sunday mornings.
Right.
And then stuff you can do at funerals, you know?
Right.
Because, you know, when folk get to funerals and they started singing, It Could Have Been Me. I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't think that's an appropriate funeral song.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? When you said Michael Ford, you made me think of somebody else, and I don't know how I forgot her to start with. It's Mayberta Ward.
Miss Mayberta, yes.
Right. Yeah, because she just passed within the last year or so, and she was playing up until she passed at 90-something years. I think 93 or 94.
And you know what, Sam? When I found out she had passed, it had been like a month later.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think she left instructions: do not announce her death until after she was buried. She didn't want a funeral or anything. So that was so Mayberta. That was so her. Yeah.
And we would have. And she's another one that I was working trying to get her on the show. I talked with her a couple of times. You know, Sam, sometimes the older people, when I approach them about doing pajama praise, they don't really understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
But yet, man, when I get them on and they start talking, you know, they start remembering things they would have never remembered. Yeah, you know? I mean,
Mayberta had a mind out of this world. I mean, she was real sharp. When I was at Pilgrim Rest and she was on the staff, sometimes she would send me a note. She would write a note, and she had very good penmanship. And she would send me a note just to tell me to fix your face. Somebody's watching you. So I guess I would be looking some kind of way about myself. But she just had a way with words.
But you know, some of the people that again paved the way. Dr. Bobby Baylor. You know, Dr. Bobby Baylor was with the Fort Worth chapter, served in Fort Worth church music, I know, close to 70 years. And he also taught, he was on the faculty of the Gospel Music Workshop. As a matter of fact, the last time the workshop was in Alabama.
Birmingham.
In Birmingham. We took a picture of Miss Kelly, Finance, Dr. Baylor, and me.
That was a lot of history right there.
Yeah. And within 2 years, Finance and Dr. Baylor were gone.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, at Dr. Baylor's funeral, Patrick Clark and me sat by each other at Dr. Baylor's funeral, and we were teasing Finance in the choir stand. You know, because, you know, he always cut up.
Right, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Look, he would cry for a little while, and then he'd cut up.
Yeah.
And then within a year later, man, Finance was gone. I mean, it's just mind blowing, you know?
I remember Finance funeral because I wore a pair of new shoes. And I had to walk so far to the church. By the time I got to the church, my feet were hurting so bad. And then there wasn't any seats. I had to stand up in the balcony for 2 hours. I'm like, I would not do this for anybody but Finance. Oh my God, that was torture.
And look, and while we talking about folk clowning around and comedians, Charles Mitchell.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. And so many years I drove he and Linda to Texas Mass, And then I always travel with them to the convention. So that was always an experience. Like every year it got better and better. Every year something different would always happen. So yeah, I got a lot of Charles Mitchell stories.
Charles Mitchell, man, he would just keep you dying laughing.
In stitches.
And then, Sam, Dwight Taylor, most people thought, if you didn't really know Dwight, most people thought he was from Fort Worth, but he was from Dallas.
Right, he was from Dallas. And this is a Dwight Taylor story that I remember from GMWA. We were in Kansas City, and the convention center was at the end of it was a hill. The host hotel, I don't remember what it was, but it was up high. And then Dwight was in a wheelchair, and Charles was leading him around in a wheelchair, and we were at the top of that hotel. We were at the hotel talking, but the wheelchair was pointed down the hill, and Charles let the wheelchair go, laughing, and he didn't realize that Dwight had rolled down the hill. Dwight did not talk to us that whole week. Oh my God, it was hilarious to see Charles trying to run down that hill to catch the wheelchair so Dwight would roll out in the street. Oh my God. Dwight was mad at us the entire week.
Wow. And Michael Burns, so we have to mention Glenn Burley, because although Glenn Burley was from Oklahoma, he was in Houston for a number of years.
Yeah, he did spend a lot of time here in Houston. He was here a number of years. Excellent songwriter. I was also impressed. He could score his own music.
Right.
He did a good job of it.
Between Richard Smallwood and Glenn Burley, as far as my experiences with classical music and gospel music, those two could merge the two like nobody else. Danny Kaysen could do it too. But Glenn Burley, man, he had a Baptist bump style. And then next thing you know, he's doing some adding Beethoven and what's that other?
He did a little bit of it all. I taught a song to my youth choir last week, and it just dawned on me. I looked at the credits, and he wrote it was by Glenn Burley, so he did some of everything.
Do you remember which song it was?
Oh wow. The tune is in my head. I can't think of the name of that song. That.
Well, if you think of it, just blurt it out. And then when we're talking about Houston musicians, I mean, we've got to talk about Carl Preacher, Miss Shirley Joyner, and Brenda Waters.
Yeah.
Brenda was
Yeah, Brenda would come to Fort Worth and do workshops,
Yeah, they were unique. I mean, Carl and that organ. And what I tell people is Carl can sing as well as he can play. He could sing as well as he can. Yes.
Really? And so maybe that was him singing some of the songs on some of the recordings that I just didn't realize it. But I knew him as an organist of organists,
Yes, exactly. I've only known him to lead one song with the choir, the Southeast. But yeah, he can definitely sing. He could definitely sing. And Shirley Joyner, she was one writer also. She could excellent songwriter.
So Sam, the guy that came here and he was from Houston with Pastor Wallace, what was his name?
Anthony Robinson.
Anthony Robinson. Did you know him, Michael?
He was at Lily Grove when Pastor.
Okay, yeah, I remember him. Yeah, I do. I remember him.
He was an excellent musician.
Yeah. Excellent musician. He came one year. I was helping Finest with his musical, and Tamara was the guest pianist. I was the guest organist,
Mm-hmm.
and she brought Anthony over. And he came up and played a song, man, just super gifted.
Yeah.
Now, by the time you were at Pilgrim Rest, was Anthony still there, Sam?
Yes, he was there. I joined in 92. Pastor Wallace came in 90, and I joined in 92. And Anthony probably didn't pass the 95, 96, something like that. So I worked with him a few years.
Okay. Yeah, so again, man, the dots are connected, because again, a lot of the musicians from Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston interacted with each other. As a matter of fact, Willie Thornton would come and do workshops in both cities, in Dallas and Fort Worth.
Right.
And I already mentioned Brenda Waters. And then Miss Theola Booker, did we call her name?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so Miss Theola Booker, well-known writer of church music. And then she worked with the New Music Seminar, right, Sam?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. I met her through Ronald when Ronald was over New Music and then at Texas Mass. That's how I met her. And she was such a sweet lady. Once we met, I felt like she made me feel like she'd known me all my life. She probably knew me 3 years, but she was she has such a wonderful, warming personality.
Yeah, very nice person.
Yeah, Rayford mentioned Michael Terrell. We already mentioned Michael Terrell.
Yeah, we did.
Rayford, just super gifted. When you're talking about a well-rounded musician,
yes,
Michael Terrell was a well-rounded musician.
I think Michael Terrell was a little bit before his time, and here in Dallas, he was too advanced for us at that time. But he was wonderful.
Oh yeah, he just super gifted. And as far as working with choirs,
right. Yeah, back then Golden Gate probably had the biggest youth choir. They had a youth choir over 100 back in the 80s, and they could sing. The youth choir was that big as well as their combined choirs, but their youth choir was phenomenal under him.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of youth choirs, Glenn, the name of that song is "Everywhere I Go, There's God."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd love to hear that. And you know what? And I know we're talking about something different, but man, we need to start archiving this music. And so I'm going to share something with you guys you probably didn't know, but you'll know tonight. So this coming fall, I'm going to be an adjunct instructor at Tarrant County College. I'll be teaching a gospel music class.
Wow.
And one of the things that we're going to do is, of course, man, look at all genres of gospel music and archive. So, they have the museum at Baylor, the Gospel Music Museum, where they've taken gospel music from as far back as Dorsey. And they are archiving that music and putting the records on, making it digital, Okay. And so, even with us tonight calling the names of people that were trailblazers, we've got to start remembering them and archiving music. So, Michael, if there's any way I could hear a recording of that song, man, I would love to hear it,
I'll work on it.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of music out there that's never been recorded.
Right,
so
right. And so that's one of my tasks. One of the things we're going to do in the fall when we start the class. I already told my supervisor that I want to take the class on a field trip to Baylor to go to the Gospel Music Museum there. because they have the music archived there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they
And
only
so
just the sound recording is what they're archiving?
yeah, so what they're doing is they're collecting recordings from all over the country or all over the world of gospel music. And they have a studio there. And what they're doing is preserving that music. So they're getting in records, cassette tapes, reel-to-reels, and everything. They've done several stories on it on the news channels. Mm-hmm. And so, Michael, you need to make sure you get your recordings to them so they'll be archived, you know?
Right.
Terri, you have some other names you want to add?
Well, I thought about Carolyn Ingram.
Carolyn Ingram.
Emerson Wade.
Emerson Wade. Now listen, Sam. Now, let me say this: you got a mink jacket, right?
Yes.
Well, listen. Now, listen. Emerson Wade had a full-length mink coat.
All right.
And when Emerson would show up in church, he'd let you know he was there. Because he'd come down the center aisle and sit down in the front with his mink. Be late, come in talking loud.
Yeah. And then you mentioned design. There was Valerie Campbell.
Valerie Campbell. Oh man, you know what, man, boy, my heart is still broken. So Valerie was supposed to have been at the Hymn Fest with us last year.
Right.
She had confirmed, and then I called her to follow up with her, and Pastor Wendell Campbell answered the phone and said, well, she's in the hospital right now. And so, I'm thinking, well, she'll be out and, she'll be okay and be at the Hymn Fest. Then the next thing I know, I'm calling you, asking you, was it true what I heard,
Yeah. And then, her mom was also
Right.
Jean Johnson.
Right.
Yeah. And Miss Alleman.
Miss Alleman.
There was some old issues. Yeah.
Edward Cole over at Pleasant Mount Gilead.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
What was the lady's name at Stranger's Rest that played for the men's choir?
It's not. What was this? Eddington was playing back then.
Yeah, she was at Pleasant Mount Gilead. Sam, weren't y'all in the same district with Stranger's Rest in Fort Worth?
We were in Galilee Griggs. I can't remember if Strangers Rest was in Galilee Griggs. I know.
Galilee Griggs was up.
Oh, that was Terri's church, New
Okay.
Bethel.
Okay, and I know my brother's church was in Galilee Griggs, Mount Gilead.
Yeah, Mount Gilead. Yeah.
But I can't remember any other Fort Worth churches.
Okay. Speaking of Community First. What was the guy's name that directed the choir? David Ellison?
David Ellis.
David Ellis.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
David
so,
Ellis.
So David was a part of the original DFW Mass Choir too. He directed a song, and I think he wrote one of the songs on the project too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Michael, did you come up with any more names?
I think we pretty much covered everyone because, I'd be going on for days. We've lost so many. But the ones that I named earlier was pretty much the ones I actually interacted with, during my time.
Oh,
Okay.
and Glenn, somebody else from Fort Worth. I didn't hear y'all call her name. Y'all could have Micheal Fisher.
That's right. Avis Micheal Fisher.
Right.
Yeah.
Avis Micheal Fisher. That was my ride from choir rehearsal and from school.
Oh yeah, I think I remember you posting that somewhere.
Yeah, you know, she drove a station wagon and we all lived
Right.
in the
And
same
I was
community.
gonna say, did she drive a station wagon? I remember you saying
She
that.
did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we would get in that station wagon. It was about 6 or 7 of us that rode home to Highland Hills with Avis.
Wow.
Yeah, another great loss. Here's another guy. I don't know if y'all ever knew him. He was not originally from Fort Worth, but he was in Fort Worth a long time. Mr. Timothy Sims. He played organ at Shiloh over there back in the day with Miss Kelly and Corners. He was there before Mark was.
Okay.
But so here's some history. Timothy Sims and Charles Nix went to college together.
Wow.
And both of them were pipe organists. And Charles Nix came here one time to visit Timothy Sims, you know. And of course, Charles Nix, he was one of the founding members of GMWA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn, I don't know if I mentioned this person, but Hank Neal is another musician that lived in Houston, I think by way of Detroit, but Hank Neal.
Right. Hank Neal was a big part of the church music community. He was at Windsor at one time, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then he
went to Wheeler Avenue.
Wheeler, right. But Hank was a big part of the gospel music workshop. He's on many of the recordings of GMWA. What was that song he was really known for?
Move Yourself. If you move yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go way back.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I had forgotten about that one. That wasn't the song I was talking about, but I remember that one.
Think about The Good Shepherd by Michael McKay. The Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
We did that in St. Louis.
Yeah. Right. My first workshop. Yeah. Wow. Sam, did you know this lady? And I think she was in Fort Worth and Dallas, Miss Fanny Prince.
Okay.
No.
That was my teacher.
She was your teacher, Terri?
She's Fort Worth. She came up in Mount Peaceful Baptist Church.
Oh, did she? And see, I was wondering if she was related to Reverend Prince from Dallas.
I don't know. Because I got to Pilgrim Rest after he passed, so I don't know that name, but it could be.
Well, I think her husband was kin to the Prince in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think that maybe the two brothers were brothers or something.
And it was something like that, but I just didn't quite remember. She always was ready to hit my hand with the roots.
Miss Prince was?
Oh my God. Miss Prince could go in the kitchen and fix us something to keep holler. That's not the right key, Terri. That's not the right finger, Terri.
So here's a wild story. So Eddie Moore did a recording one time at First St. John. And he had a bunch of musicians. And so Jerry Mitchell was one of the musicians that came and he played on the recording too. Jerry Mitchell, it was a bunch of us. Jerry Mitchell, Paul Bigham, Travis, Trish. You remember Trish?
Variety Star.
Yeah, Trish was played on it, and the special guest was Keith Pringle. Well, before the concert was over, Junior had left. The host of the concert.
Wow.
He had left, and we were still in there having church. and Jerry Mitchell, you know, Jerry clowned all the time.
Oh my God.
And so when Jerry found out that Junior was gone, oh man, he cut up. He cut up. You hear me?
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But you know, you're laughing, but Keith Pringle is one of my honorees. You know, the thing that I did in June last year, he's going to be in, and Keith is one of our honorees that will be on the Gospel Songwriters Conference. Also, Patrick Bradley is one of our honorees, and that's in July. But
okay.
Asking about that same situation, because that's how I first met him. And if it wasn't for Amy and Uncle Micheal here, he couldn't get back to Dallas because Junior had put him in a home.
Right. Oh yeah, it was a very unique situation, you know. But that's a part of our history, and we laugh about it now. I mean, we laughed about it then.
Yeah, we did.
Michael, I thought about Miss Berry out of Houston.
Yeah, Dr. Jessie Mae Berry.
Yeah.
She was music director for the National Convention.
Right.
She wrote so many songs.
Yeah, Miss Berry, she was very well known with the National Baptist Convention, and then we can't not mention from Austin, the other, y'all know who I'm talking about. She wrote the anthems. One Church, Miss Virgie,
Right.
Miss Virgie DeWitty.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Miss Virgie Carrington DeWitty.
Okay, yeah.
And Sam, I know y'all did her songs at St. John.
Oh yes. That's how I know St. John's, because of me knowing every old anthem and every hymn. Was we sung a hymn for the morning hymn, then we sung his hymn for the invitation every Sunday. Pastor Wilson would have tore the church down, and he would say, turn to page 372. And us younger kids, we would be so mad. Why are we singing out this book every Sunday? But now I appreciate it. Back then, I didn't care anything about it, but now I appreciate it. And we had to sing all four verses. We didn't sing the first verse 3 times. We had to sing all 4 of them.
Mrs. Bobby Strider. Terri, you remember Bobby Strider?
One while he played what's that place? Can I tell you a story about it? Bobby had me to come play with him on a musical at it's the United Methodist Church, A&E Church, right there on Manhattan. And I told him what my sister did. When we got there that Sunday, he was all upset. I'm going, what's wrong with you, Bobby? Well, the deacons don't want to pay you. And I'm going, excuse me. They don't want to pay you. And it's funny because the head of the deacons was my mama's stepsister. So Bobby said, no, dear, don't go in there. I said, why not? And his name is Pastor Stewart. He stopped me and said these words, I'll give you and I'll be happy. afterwards. Don't worry about it. You will have the money. And after that, I told my, and I mean, it was just like a big bother. You ain't gonna get your money and just let's go on in. I was so bad. I was so bad. But you know, I got that from Micheal because Micheal did say that Pleasant Mountain. The deacons would give her money. She would give me. She'd say, "Sister, sit down. I'm gonna get my money." And by the time she come out, she got her money.
Well, I think we all as musicians can attest to that because I played at a musical, had rehearsed with them for weeks, and they shouted at the musical and they were falling out and they were packing them out. It was a great musical. After the musical, I walked to the back, was standing back there in the back, and I'm not going to call his name, but he walked by me real fast. He said, "They ain't got your money." Look, he kept walking. Look, there was nothing I could do. Because guess what? They didn't have my, well, they had it. They just weren't going to pay it because it was a communication. Somebody didn't tell the pastor that I was supposed to get paid. They didn't okay it. And so, you know, you just charge that to the game, you know, and keep
Church
it
politics.
Here's another name, church politics. Mr. Zachary Wilder, you remember him, Sam?
Yes, I remember him.
I met Zachary years ago.
When?
Okay, I think Terri's in. I just saw my name pop up. Now, I don't know how she put my name in. Okay, so, but Zachary Wilder was playing at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Over in there she is.
Hi,
Hey, Terri Lynn.
How y'all doing?
Finally, at last.
Don't try it.
It's almost time for us to go.
I know. I just had to go back.
She got my name up there.
I just had to go back and start over.
She's gone.
And now she's gone.
Okay, she's back.
Okay.
Be still. Don't do anything.
What is Terri?
Okay. I'm through. All right.
But yeah, you know, a couple of other names that we did not mention was Quinnell Gaskin. He recently passed away within the last 2 years. Right. As a matter of fact, he and Sean Martin passed away the same week.
Okay.
Quinnell Gaskin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember.
James Powell.
Yeah.
James who?
You work. You know James Powell, Sam?
Yes, he played at the Citywide
James
Revival.
Powell.
The choir's transition. He was the musician to play at Citywide during the offering and for the choirs to change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, Glenn, Sean McLemore.
Oh, you know who else? Sean McLemore.
Exactly.
He passed away?
Yes. A couple of years ago.
Wow. Oh, I forgot about that. Sure did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a big-time recording artist, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Chester McCree. We called him Chad.
Mm-hmm.
But Chad passed this year.
That was about months ago.
Right.
Do we call Miss Billy's name Miss Billy Roberts?
No, we didn't.
And so, you know, I had the opportunity to work with Miss Billy her last years at Bethany. She was the pianist. She came on the first and the third Sunday. Just a wonderful person to work with, could play anything. I mean, just a phenomenal musician. And I know she had been the minister of music at St. Luke for years.
I didn't ever know that.
As a matter of fact, she was there when Monia was there. And so she recommended Monia to be the minister of music at St. Luke.
Okay.
And I know this because she told me this.
Okay.
Did you call Lady Carol Adora?
I didn't. Miss Lady Adora Carroll.
Uh-huh. What was it?
She was
Amanda. What's that? Reverend Jones Church.
Mayfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Lady Carroll.
And
Laura Rogers. We cannot.
Malcolm.
Go ahead.
Malcolm that worked for Spencer.
Malcolm Lee.
Yes.
Malcolm Lee.
Yes.
Yep. Malcolm. Who told me they went to college with Malcolm? Somebody told me they went to college with Malcolm.
Jackie passed away. She was in his group.
Okay, but it was somebody I interviewed.
Oh, okay.
That went to Texas College or Wiley. Who did I interview that went to Wiley College? But they knew Malcolm. Mr. J.C. Carter, did we call his name?
No, I don't think we did.
Yeah, it's so many, and you know what? We're not trying to slight anybody, but I do think as many names as we could call, because people forget about them,
Right.
I mean,
right.
they forget, and they just they would never. Some of them would never be remembered again.
Right. But this is a name I was trying to remember from Good Street. And when I was a little boy, she was the minister of music, and now the choir is named after her. Ollie Scruggs, she was there with Pastor Clark. I didn't know her, but
I remember hearing that name.
I just remember her name.
Right. And you know what? The other name, Mr. Brown, we just mentioned him yesterday. He was at Bethany for a long time.
I didn't know.
He's
brown, like the color brown.
Yeah, Miss Hill, if you still own, if you could put in his first name, he was an educator. He was the reason that Miss Joanna Jordan ended up at Bethany.
Oh, okay.
Because he brought her over to work with the choir, and the church ended up hiring her. Yeah, so okay, so Rayford said Malcolm Lee went to Golden Gate. So he was at Golden Gate at one time. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Golden Gate Baptist Church.
What'd you say, Terry?
He played for Strangers Rest.
Right. But he was not originally from here, so he probably
You're right.
Was at Golden Gate at one time.
Also, did we mention Richard Hawkins?
Richard Hawkins. We didn't mention Richard, and we got to mention Richard Hawkins and the Israelites.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the premier groups back in the day. James and Myra Harris at
St. Mark, Greater St. Mark.
St. Mark. Greater St. Mark.
Pastor Roberts was his dad, James.
And then your buddy Terry, Mr. Ralph Davis.
Oh my God. Listen, I did a musical with him and Archie Perry. I promised myself I would never do it again. Every rehearsal, I left there stressed. because they argued the whole time. That's not it, Ralph. Yes, it is too. I said, oh, Jesus. It was at the point I was going to say, y'all don't even have to pay me. Just thanks. I thank y'all. They was a character, both of them.
Yeah, that's also Deborah Daniels.
Who's that?
Deborah Daniels, the wife of the late Reverend Leo Daniels, that was the pastor of Greater Jerusalem. Yeah, she passed last.
Oh, yes, that's right. She just passed in the last year, didn't she?
Right, she did.
Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know at Greater Jerusalem, they did several recordings over there, didn't they?
Probably so. Back in the day, that was years ago. And her daughter is Leona Daniels, and
Leona, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It didn't Texas Mass go there 1 year?
We did back in the 80s.
I have a little story about that. We had some pleasingly plump musicians, me, Micheal, and Simone, was sitting on a bench, and we was praising the Lord, and that bench said, "Pop!"
Oh, Lord.
Everybody could get up, but Micheal couldn't get up. And I said, girl, you gonna be on that floor if you don't get up on it. You get up on this seat. Baby, I told him, I said, we just have to sit separate seats, y'all. We can't
y'all can't sit together.
We need footage.
That was too much power or pew.
But even stories of Reverend Leo Daniels, like people don't remember, a lot of people don't remember Reverend Leo Daniels, and he was one of the premier preachers back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Micheal. We were talking earlier about Texas Mass in Beaumont. Miss Ruthie at Borden Chapel.
Ruthie Williams.
Yeah, Miss Ruthie Williams at Borden Chapel, another phenomenal musician, and I think she was the chapter rep for the Beaumont chapter, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was the chapter rep when I joined Texas Mass.
She was.
Right, and she was a phenomenal musician too. People like that, man. We have to call their names every now and then, just to remember them. And so many guys. Tommy Brown, Terri, and Tommy wasn't originally from Fort Worth. He was from, and I'm going to tell you a wild story. I'm telling you, every time I do this show, the dots are connected. So Tommy was from Hearne, Texas. So do you know who his cousin is, Micheal?
I don't.
And I can't call his name. He plays in New Faith.
Today?
Yeah, he plays in New Faith now. He's been there a long time.
Is it Charles? What's his name? Richard Chance.
Yeah. Richard. That's Tommy Brown's cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. From Hearne, Texas. We talked last year in Memphis, had a long talk, and he was telling me that Tommy was his cousin, and Tommy inspired him to play,
Wow.
And so, yeah, man, I'm telling you, the dots are connecting.
Yes.
Look, all of us might be cousins down the line somewhere, and
you never know,
and don't know it. As a matter of fact, Rodney Teal. Rodney Teal's parents are from Vernon, Texas. That's where my people are from, Vernon, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never knew that.
Yeah. Well, we never would have made the connection because he's in D.C.,
Right. Yeah.
And we just so happened to have had a conversation, and he mentioned Vernon, Texas. He said, I bet you don't know where that is. I said, yeah, I do. That's where my people are from,
I'm surprised that's never come up.
Yeah.
So are you kin to Larry Bradford?
You know what? Larry, our families are intermarried.
Really?
His sister married one of my cousins.
Okay.
And he went to school with a lot of my cousins, you know. And so, oh yeah.
I took Uncle
We
Dwight and Aunt Cornish down there one year. To sing. Mm-hmm. I was a driver.
Have y'all thought of any more names?
I know, and as soon as we get off the line, somebody will come to me. But right now, my feeble mind has done all that it can do for the evening. I think I've stretched myself.
So, Sam, who were the musicians in West Dallas? Do you remember the West Dallas churches?
I don't remember, and we didn't fellowship with that many churches in West Dallas. We fellowship with New St. Paul, which was Pastor M.L. Curry, and he just passed in the last couple of months. One of the musicians, I think his name was something Brown, but I don't want to murder his first name. Well, Don Ollie started there. That's where Don Ollie, but he's still living. But that's where Don Ollie grew up at New St. Paul. And I think his mother may have been a musician, but yeah, that's where Don came from when he came to Greeks Chapel. He came from New St. Paul.
Now, what about the churches in North Dallas?
Well, that would be Pilgrim Rest, First Baptist Hamilton Park, Bethany, West Pastor House Church, St. Luke, over there by Bethany. Luke. But
Pastor David Haynes said Micheal Anderson. And I think Micheal Anderson was at Bishop J. Newell Haynes' church.
I don't remember that name, but that doesn't mean anything. You know, I'm young, so I don't remember some of those older names. I'm kidding. I'm not young, but I don't remember. I don't remember that name. And then back then, you know, the different denominations didn't mix as well as they do well as they do now. Right. So we didn't really deal with the Kojics, and the Kojics didn't deal with the Baptists back then. So I didn't know him.
What's his name? What's his name from Saintsville? And he played at Hamilton Park. He died about 2 or 3 years ago. West Angeles.
Talking about Philip?
West Angeles, Michael Burns. Oh, West Angeles, not new, huh?
I don't want to say the wrong name.
Sam, you know who I'm talking about.
He played
at
First
Dallas.
Baptist. Who?
Yes, from Dallas, West Angeles. He grew up in Dallas.
Who from West?
Who?
They just had his funeral.
I don't want to say the wrong name. You know, I don't want to make that
Saints and Praise.
Right, I know exactly.
Henderson. Some Henderson.
Yeah, Patrick Henderson.
Patrick Henderson. Oh, okay. Patrick Henderson. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Patrick Henderson.
Right. Yes. That's
See,
right.
most people knew him from West Angeles.
Right.
But no, he's from Dallas.
He was from Dallas.
I didn't know he was from Dallas. I just know him from Los Angeles.
See, as a matter of fact, he played at First Baptist Hamilton Park. And I think Miss Kazee told me this, or Miss Ruth Henderson, because I talked to her about a year ago. And then I know he played at Saintsville, but I think he also played up at what's in Denton? What's the Church of God in Christ there?
St. Andrews.
St. Andrews. Douglas Miller.
Yeah. That's the school
you
we
can't
used to
mention
go
St.
to.
Andrews.
Yeah.
That's the school we used to go to when I went to UNT, or if I stayed on a Sunday, that's where we would go.
To St. Andrews?
Mm-hmm. But they would hold church so long, we would have to leave because the cafeteria closed at 2.
Exactly.
And if we didn't get back by 2, we weren't going to have anything to eat.
I was at Texas Woman's, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, throw that finger up. If he gets good.
Yep.
I can remember Doug Miller several Sundays would get off the organ, cut him a step, and get back on the organ. That was it. S.E. Mitchell.
Yep. Yes,
Right,
that's right.
right.
That's
I
right.
remember him.
I think I started going to Baptist after that because Mount Calvary got out a little early.
Yeah, well, we used to go to St. Emmanuel, which is across the street from
Right,
St. Andrews.
right.
Yeah, we would go there
Right.
because they got out early as well.
Exactly. Well, I
Right.
went to Mount Calvary.
Yeah.
Wasn't Isaac
So
Douglas
was
from that
Reverend
area?
Miller.
Huh?
Isaac Douglas, wasn't he from that area?
Isaac Douglas. I don't remember that name, but that
I
doesn't mean.
remember Isaac Douglas.
That's going way back.
Was he from this
Yeah.
area?
I'm trying to remember that song he sung. I know Isaac Douglas. It him through Isaiah Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't call Isaiah Thomas's name, did we?
No. I talked about with the GNAA when he started it, but
Right.
yeah, we didn't call him as playing. He played at First Pilgrim Valley for years.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you what's such a tragedy, man. Isaiah Thomas died, and we did not, the music community here in Fort Worth did not come together to give him a big homegoing. And he was the founder of the Fort Worth chapter, right?
Right. But we didn't find out until they had had the funeral. That's what happened with us. They didn't let us know. Yeah. Right.
Andrew had we were talking. He said, yeah, we had a funeral today over at, what's the name of his church? Greater St. Mark. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said it was a musician. I said, what was his name? He said, Isaiah Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what? He said, a Bishop Isaiah Thomas. Just floored, Michael, because, again, he was the founder of the Fort Worth chapter.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But we did, the year that I was chapter rep after finals passed, we had one of our return musicals, and we did honor him that year.
Okay.
We had him to come back, and we did give him a plaque. We did honor him in one of our return musicals. And it was like a couple of years after that he passed.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, Pastor David Haynes, we're remembering deceased musicians. Pastor Milton Pace is very much alive.
Oh, Lord.
He's going to be with us this coming Sunday for the Hymn Fest.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Pastor David Haynes, if you're in town that Sunday, man, we would love for you to join us this coming Sunday at Cornerstone. But yeah, man, just stuff like that. People who put their life into church music.
Mm-hmm.
We ought to remember them. Back then, they did not get paid, Michael, what you guys are demanding today for salaries. You got to have $1,000 a Sunday. Back then, those guys were making $100 a week, and then some of the deacons and trustees was mad about that.
Some of them was taking their tithes out. Helping they self. They give you what's after your tithes.
If you were making $100 a Sunday, boy, you was big time.
And then you had an afternoon service and a night service.
And a night service. You hear me?
Yeah.
They expect you to be there.
Yep.
An afternoon service where you sit there, because back in the day, and I know all of y'all remember this. If you were I'm sure St. John and Pilgrim Rest and Griggs went to the pastor's appreciation services, and they had at least 2 or 3 other churches there. You hear me?
At Griggs, we went somewhere every Sunday. If we didn't go somewhere, we had 3 o'clock. If we came home on a Sunday, we didn't know what to do. We were bored because we used to go. And my dad was the chairman of Deacon Board, and he had no filter. And all he used to say, all them doing is going exchanging money. That's all they doing. They paying each other $300. They come over here, they gonna pay them $300. I ain't going to none of that.
And Pastor Webb was the moderator, wasn't he?
He was over one of the zones in Galilee Creek. He was over the zone number 5. Pastor Parrish and Truly was the moderator.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
And then I don't remember who took it after I think his son took it after he passed. After the senior passed, then the son took it as moderator.
Speaking of Truly, didn't one of their musicians pass?
Well, Doris was there. That's where
Right.
Doris. That's where Doris was when she passed.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Truly. So I remember Miss Doris was at Truly.
And she was at Mount Horeb for years.
Mount Horeb, and then she was at
Reverend Fleming's church.
Reverend Fleming.
On Westmoreland.
And I will tell you how I know, because Dwight did workshops at all of those churches, and I went and played organ for him.
Yeah.
And now Truly, man, they had a choir over there.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Truly had a good choir. Truly had a good choir. And Reverend Fleming's church, they had a pretty good choir up there too. Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
His sister, I think his sister or niece or something was over the choir. I can't think of her name, but she was over the choir back then with Doris.
Mm-hmm. You know whose name we did not call, and I know all of you knew him. Terri, you knew him from back in the day, Citywide. Micheal, you knew him from Houston via Austin. Kenneth Brown.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all about Kenneth. Yeah. He lived here for a while.
Right. He came there initially with New Faith, right?
Ooh, I think
Because
so.
I know he was there at New Faith for a while.
Yeah, for a while. I think it might have been, because for a while, when I would go down and get my niece that was at University of Houston, Kathy and him would tell me, instead of
you stay with Kathy and Kenneth. Something happened to your voice.
She might have hit the mute button, but it doesn't say mute.
I know. Did you hit mute, Terri? Are you there, Terri?
She's froze. Okay, she's back.
All right, Terri, you there with us?
I guess we weren't supposed to hear that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, she's coming back. She was muted.
Yeah, but Kenneth Brown, I mean, he was such a great factor of music. Also, Carl Neal, I don't know if y'all knew him, St. James in Austin.
I remember the name.
Yeah. Carl Neal, he was minister of music for many years at St. James in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Listen, guys, you know what? I know we could go on and on, but I did want us to do this special pajama praise and try to remember those names, call those names so that we don't ever forget them. I grew up listening Miss Carol Jean Wines Brown, who was at Mount Olive in Fort Worth. And this is a wild story. I didn't get in music until I was in high school, but Miss Brown lived around the corner from me in my neighborhood, and she was our middle school music teacher. But she was the minister of music at Mount Olive back when Reverend Dawson was the pastor there. I don't know if y'all ever came to Fort Worth back then. Now I know y'all came. Griggs Chapel came to First St. John, didn't y'all?
Yes, we came to First St. John, but I remember coming to Mount Olive with Pilgrim Rest. And I think it was when Reverend Glenn had just initially came, because he was from Houston with Pastor Wallace. But I remember Golden Gate coming a lot to Mount Olive with Pastor Dawson. I think they came during the church anniversary or something like that. It was a real big program, and I think I even went one Sunday. I probably was a teenager. Right. Going. Yeah.
But Miss Carol Jean Wines Brown was minister of music. I mean, just as a matter of fact, she took me to my first Margaret DeRoe workshop.
Wow.
It was at Rising Star Baptist Church. Michael Terrell was there. Charles Mitchell was playing. Ernestine Green, Dwight Taylor. Because that's back then. Margaret DeRoe was the biggest thing going.
Right, right.
I mean, she literally had a 300 voice choir.
Right. I came to that. I came to that one year in Fort Worth. I don't know who I came with, but I remember going to Rising Star to their workshop, and I was so amazed to be sitting under Margaret DeRoe, because, like you said, she was top notch.
Oh yeah. And all the musicians from Dallas came. Pat Kazee, Ruth Henderson. Of course, the Mitchells were there. Michael Terrell played and sang. Billy Wedgeworth.
Yeah.
Billy, who was at Golden Gate.
Yeah, he was at Golden Gate after
and New Golden Gate too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Billy Wedgeworth. He's not deceased, but Ken Rowe.
Yes. Yeah.
Ken Rowe, very influential. Miss Julie Cathy Steptoe said that we mentioned Renard Hunter. Yeah. Terri, we still can't hear you. Something happened. Yeah, Renard Hunter. That's right. He played in Fort Worth for a while at Mount Zion, and then he moved to Chicago. Mm-hmm. Listen, guys, you know what? We've been on for a while, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. I plan to do this every year, Hopefully we won't lose any more musicians between this time next year and now. But again, we want to always remember those people who again impacted our lives through church music. We're gonna look up one day and church music will not be the same as it was. I mean, I do think that music should evolve, but I do think that we should keep some of our traditions in place too. We've got to, Sam, that's one of the things that the Gospel Music Workshop of America strives to do, to keep all genres of music relevant. Is that something that y'all talk about at the chapter reps meetings?
Yes. Well, not necessarily at the chapter rep meeting, because we try to get the chapter reps to pay their registration, but that's a different conversation. But it has been discussed, and like when I go to New Music and Mass Choir, of course, they do talk about keeping the gospel music alive and keeping the choirs relevant in churches.
Mm-hmm. The older I get, Michael, I mean, I just want to hear some good music, I don't necessarily need the bumping and the jumping and the rocking and the swagging and the surfing.
Right. Some good church music.
I mean, the other Sunday we did "Oh to Be Kept by Jesus," And I remember back in 1982, Terri going to Harvey Avenue with Paul. And Paul did "Oh to Be Kept" by Jesus. It took me back then when choirs had that big full sound, and you know, it wasn't about the beat, but the lyrics, you know. And then, you know, some 40 years later, that song hit different. You know what I'm saying? It hits different when you say those words, "Oh, to be kept by Jesus," and just thinking about how the Lord has kept us over the years, you know?
Right.
But listen, guys, again, thank you so much for being on. It's almost 9 o'clock. It's amazing how time flew by.
It's almost my bedtime.
But listen, guys, it's amazing how time flew by. It's been almost 2 hours, and we really didn't even scratch the surface of people who paved the way. Did we call Cornell Morell's name, Sam?
Yes.
We did.
Yes, we did.
Cornell Morell. Did we call Ronald Mateer's name, Michael Burgers?
Yes, we did.
Okay. You don't want to miss somebody. Let's see.
There are a lot more. I mean, I left off a lot of people, you know, but I mean, the list goes on. You know, we can only get so many in.
So many on.
Just speaking of Ronald, I have not been to Texas Mass since Ronald passed. I mean, that was my last Texas Mass, and it was at Brentwood. We had a luncheon, and he and I and somebody else, we stood outside and talked about an hour after that luncheon. And that was in November. It was in November. And by December, Ronald was gone. I just could not.
Right.
I mean, we stood out there and laughed and talked, and you know, and that Friday night when Houston sang, he got sick. You know, he had to go out when they sang. But you know, of course, we didn't think it was anything serious. And we stood out there and talked and laughed and talked and cut up. And I just could not believe, you know, after he got sick, and then I was in New Orleans on vacation when they texted me and told me he passed. And that was just like devastating, because Ronald used to cut up so bad with everybody. Ronald would be in new music and a song wouldn't go right, and he started looking and texting, and he'd have everybody in the room toe up, and then he'd be up there looking straight like he didn't do anything. But I just miss those. In Texas Mass, we'd be in board meeting, and it'd be going all kind of ways, and Ronald would text me and say, "Why am I sitting in here?" And I would just burst out laughing, and everybody started looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm laughing at Ronald's text. But he was such a great guy, and I just really do miss him. I mean, like everybody does. He was just he was the glue for so many people.
And see, I knew Ronald before his Texas Mass days, because when we were going to Texas Mass, Michael, remember back in the 80s, Ronald wasn't coming to Texas Mass.
He wasn't around. He came in later, some of the second half.
Right. I met Ronald at New Faith through Paul Bigham. When I was at Rising Star, Reverend Emerson came from New Faith, and so New Faith came every year for Reverend Emerson's anniversary, and so that's when Ronald and Karen was there, and then later Kenneth came. Yes. Kenneth Brown came, and so and Paul Bigham again. Paul Bigham is the one. Paul and Ronald were buddies. Each year when Rising Star would go to Houston, Paul would come over, and I would always have Paul to come up and play something with us, because he knew a lot of our music. And, you know, we just had a great fellowship, man. You know, that's Ronald Mateer is a big void. Not being here is a big void in church music, you know? Yeah. I mean, it just is, you know. He's one of those impactful people. And we already called his name, but even Finest, Finest Smith was well known at GMWA. I mean, he would go every year, and he cut up the whole time. And listen, if you ever wanted to find out the gossip at the workshop, if you ever want to find out what was going on, Finest could get it. You hear me? If he didn't have it when you called, he said, give me 5 minutes. And I don't know who he called.
Yep.
The year they recorded Order My Steps, because Order My Steps, Burley had done it. He did it several times before he took it to the workshop. I knew it already.
He did.
So the year the women recorded it at the workshop, Finest and I were roommates that year. And so he went to the recording. I didn't go to the recording. So I asked him, I said, did you go to the recording? He reached in his pocket and pulled out his tape recorder. He had recorded the recording. You hear me? And, we weren't supposed to do that.
Oh my God.
But just times like that. And then Clark tells this story about Finest went to one of the nightly musicals and fell asleep. Well, he took his shoes off. And somebody, they were playing a trick on him. They took his shoes and hid it from him. And he woke up, got ready to go, and couldn't find his shoes.
Oh my God.
But listen, guys, just times like that, and we remember them, for not only being musicians and choir directors and singers, but humanitarians. I mean, just the humanitarians that they were. A couple of months ago, I interviewed Carol Allen Simmons' daughter.
Angela?
And that song "Worthy Vessel," I heard it again back in the 80s, but it hits different now. It hits different because the idea is we'll never pass this way again. And so we ought to do all that we can. We ought to try to impact lives. And so listen, guys, we're at the end of the show. Thank you so much for giving up your time tonight. Sam, thank you so much. You're doing an incredible job with Dallas chapter. I know you are. I don't get to come as much as I used to. I have my choir rehearsals on Saturdays. And man, sometimes on Saturdays I'm worn out. You hear me?
I understand.
But I know you're doing an incredible job. I was there at last chapter rehearsal, and y'all bucked and danced all over the place. Y'all act like y'all in concert. You hear me?
Thank you.
But that's the way it is, man. We've got incredible musicians and singers and incredible leadership with the chapter. Micheal, I know you guys are doing an incredible work down in Houston. I see all the concerts y'all are having. What's the big thing that y'all just did back in a couple of months ago? Was it in February? Music conference. Angela Bennett had?
Yeah, that was the Healing Conference.
Healing Conference,
Yeah.
Healing Conference. Yeah, it was February.
I mean, y'all had folk there from all over the country. All over the country. Sister Angela Bennett is doing a great job, and the other musicians. Mm-hmm. And again, my challenge to you is to keep writing that music, keep writing books. I don't know if you've done any recordings lately, but I know the phenomenal work you do, and I hope you keep doing it. Terri Swift is one of our leading musicians in the city. She's one of the people that we call on often. I call on her often She's going to be with us at the Hymn Fest this Saturday. I mean, she's always been an incredible supporter. Terri, I don't think I tell you enough how I appreciate you through the years, being a great supporter. She supports everybody. And that is one of the great signs of a leader giving support. And again, Texas is gifted. I mean, we're blessed. I mean, we have, if it ain't in Dallas, we can go to Houston. If it ain't in Houston, we can go to Fort Worth. And so even with Texas Mass, and we've mentioned it several times, Dr. Patrick Bradley is on with us tonight. He leads that choir, the Texas Mass choir, the music division, and Texas Mass is top notch. I mean, it is top notch. And so we just say thank you. One of the things I always do, guys, is call the names of the people that are on with us. And I want to do that tonight before we go. Let's see, let me pull this up. And just to say thank you for to all the people who took out the time to be with us tonight. Let's see, where are we? Where are we? Let's see, there we go. Okay, Sister Toy Ferguson, thank you for being with us. Sister Andrea Sanders from Pleasant Mount Gilead. Another one of our musicians, Miss Julia Kathy Steptoe. Thank you for being with us. Let's see, who else is with us? Pastor David Haynes, one of our musicians for Fort Worth, who now pastors in West Texas, in Lubbock, Texas. Thank you for being with us, Pastor David Haynes. Dr. Patrick Bradley, Minister of Music of the Dallas chapter, Minister of Music of the Texas Mass Choir, Minister of Music at West. He wears a lot of hats, and he's with the new music and the Mass Choir for GMWA. Thank you for your continued support. Mr. Keith Eason. Mr. Keith Eason, you're supposed to be one of my guests on Pajama Praise. I need to get with you. Dr. Angela Bennett told me about you. And so we're going to get you on Pajama Praise so you can tell us who you are and the great things you've done. Miss Elaine Miles, thank you for being with us. Miss Bessie Lonnell Hamilton, thank you for being with us. Taylor Hodge, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your continued support. Miss Bertha Johnson, and then my choir member from Bethany Baptist Church, Miss Naomi Hill. I know there's many others there because the thing said there's 355 people watching us. And so I don't know who all is on with us tonight, but I know so many of you are there with us. But again, thank you guys so much for being with us for the Memorial Day Pajama Praise. If you go to the site, even when we go off and you remember people, just type their names in because people are important. And as the scripture says, that ye may tell it to generations following, so when generations come, they'll remember we were here, we served, and we gave of ourselves in service. Again, before we go, let me say this. We have the Hymn Fest coming up this coming Sunday. Again, these are legends. Pastor Milton Pace, Pastor Alvin Pope, Pastor Willie Stewart, Pastor Darrell Blair. They're going to be with us on Sunday for the Hymn Fest. We're going to get you in and out, but we plan to sing some hymns, Sam. If y'all don't have 3 o'clock service Sunday,
we got to sing in a music. We got to sing in a musical at Antioch Sunday at 5.
Oh my God, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
But Brother Michael Burns, if you make it to to Arlington, come to the Hymn Fest. Come to the Hymn Fest.
I'll do my
Terri
best.
and I will be there.
Mhm.
Terri and I will be there. But again, y'all continue to pray for our country. Continue to pray for our leadership. Remember, not only the Hymn Fest, but the Bon Voyage musical is when, Sam?
The first Sunday in July, I think it's July the 6th at Golden Gate Baptist Church at 6:00 p.m.
Bon Voyage musical for the Dallas chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop, Sunday, July the 6th at Golden Gate Baptist Church. Hey, listen, y'all, this has been a great evening. We will see y'all later. Good night.
Good night.